Hello, students. uh, Here, this is Dr. Ziad. We are here live on YouTube in order to study our one poem, and that is Presents from My Aunts in Pakistan. This is the real title. On this poem, we shall be making our discussion today. This poem is written by Moniza Alvi. We are live on YouTube, so do not comment on it. I shall be just speaking. Just send me one comment by CR or GR that you people are able to see live on YouTube. So I am just talking about the topic, and in the meanwhile, you can reach and listen to all that. Any person should comment here. Well, presents from Pakistan, presents from my aunts in Pakistan. This is the topic of the day, and it's the poem that is written by Moniza Alvi, one of the famous Pakistani writers, one of the famous person who is very good in writing poetry. And let me explain the title first of all. The title of the poem, as it says, presents from my aunts in Pakistan. There are, excuse me, there are 3 to 4 important things in this title. One is the presents. Present is there in the sense of the gifts, gifts that people send to each other, give to each other. That is the presents. And then the word is my aunts. It means that these are the gifts which are sent by the people. These are the gifts which are sent by the relative people. I mean, the people who are relative to us, having connection with us, and possibly our cousins, our relatives, other things possibly may be there. So these are the presents in the title. And then in Pakistan, it means that the writer is not living in Pakistan, writer is living somewhere else in diaspora or outside. And here the writer has to show in that way that the presents are coming from Pakistan and he is living or she is living outside. So this is going to be the title of the poem, and let us go forward and read the further things in this title. The very first slide was about the title, and the second slide is about the poet. I have recorded some of the facts about the life of the poet. You can look at the picture of the poet also. What a lovely picture of the lovely poet. The first information is that the poetess was born in Lahore, and later on, when she started to grow up, I mean, after 4 years of her age, she went to Hertfordshire, and there in England, she continued to study. She studied in the University of York and then in the University of London. And in that way, she grew up by getting higher education. With the passage of time in 2011, she started to write poetry. And when she was writing, she felt very sickness. I mean, she felt very homesickness. I mean, she felt that she has to, talk about her Pakistani people or her family back in Pakistan. She started to remember her people. And in that way, she started to remember her roots, and these roots she wanted to explore. So that is why she started to write about Pakistan. By the way, I need to tell my students also that they should know that this poetess was the tutor also for poetry school. I mean, she was teaching some of the people in the poetry school. When we say that someone is a tutor, so when we say that someone is a tutor, it means that the person is giving detailed instructions to the people. So she is teaching in the poetry school also. And then another information about her is that ye, she is she is also getting the award in 2002. She got this award, and in her poetry, then some of the themes are present, and these themes are duality, partition, fractured identity, and transformation. So by duality, I mean the two types of things, two types of things, the two types of things which possibly can be present oppositely in the poetry of any person. And the two things when come together, that is called duality. After duality, you find there the partition theme, partition which is relevant to our establishment of Pakistan. I mean, when Pakistan was established at that time, what happened during the partition, how the country was divided, the politics, the other things, that is the theme of our poetry. Then is the fractured identity. I mean, the identity which is not full, which is broken. इस बात को understand करने के लिए we can think about the people who migrated from India to Pakistan. They were first born in India. Later on, they came to Pakistan. So first they were Indian, then they became Pakistanis. If such a person goes to London, it means that the person begins living in London. So in that way, identity is, fractured. And then the transformation of identity as well. After that, she talks mostly about the homelands. The two types of homeland. One is the real homeland. The real homeland is that homeland in which one is living, and imagined homeland, that type of homeland in which one is required to see how the imaginative type of homelands can be constructed. So that is the reason two homelands are also present in her poetry. So this is the introduction to her poetry, her biography a little bit, after that her functioning, working, performance, and ultimately the themes. Let us repeat the themes because the two themes will be present in our poem also. That is duality, the theme is partition, fractured identity, etc. Now this is about her poetry, what type of poetry she is writing, or what type of things we can find in her poetry. First thing is that the receding east, the receding west, that she would be talking about two parts of the world. One is the east, other is the west, and these two parts of the world, according to her, are going away from each other. Secondly, we shall find some interplay between her inner and outer feeling. I mean, what is going on inside herself and what is the world outside. The difference will also be indicated by her through her poetry. Imagination and reality is the third thing in her poetry. That, as for example, if you look at the picture, the girl is looking fatty in reality, but in her imagination, she is looking smart. So that is one example of imagination and reality. It means that what we are really, and after that we think also what we can be, that is imagination and reality. Physical and spiritual experience, after that, another theme can be the experience which are really happening in this world for the poet, for the people. And the spiritual experience, I mean a type of religious or mystic experience. Then is the fascination with otherness. The next theme is that in our poetry, otherness, in order to understand otherness, you need to remind yourself of the post-colonial situation or colonial situation. In colonial situation, colonial master used the word us, us for himself and for the Indians, for example, for African, for example, the word was other. So it means that the others are the people who are ruled people, who are the dominated people, who are the people who are not important at all. So they are the others. So in this way, This type of othering is also one of the fascination theme of this writer. This writer also wants to talk about something good, surreal thing, something good, something beneficial thing. And she also brings in her poetry something which is strange and tries to make that strange thing as familiar. And sometimes she brings in her poetry that some familiar thing is made to feel strange. So these are some of the points of introduction of the writer, the poet Moniza Alvi, whose poem today we are going to discuss. The poem begins from here. My viewers and students, if you look at the picture shows the dress of a girl, which is called in Pakistan as shalwar kameez, although in English we would call it shirt and then we will call it trouser. But still, it is good to say it shalwar kameez because this is Pakistani poem and most of the audience is also Pakistani. The second part of the picture is on bangles, chudiyan as we call it, bangles which are worn by the girls on their arms. So these two pictures are mentioned in the first section of the poem. This poem is titled as Presents from My Aunts in Pakistan, number one. I have given it number one because on this slide only we can talk about this. So in the remaining slides, able to we will be able to see what other parts of the poems can be there. So in that way, this is going to be the first part of the poem. And let me read this part for you first of all, and then we shall talk about this part. The part is like that. They sent me a shalwar kameez, peacock blue, glistening like an orange split open. Embossed slippers, gold and black, points curling, candy stripped glass bangles, snapped, drew blood like at school. Fashions changed in Pakistan. The shalwar bottoms were broad and stiff, then narrow. My aunts chose and an apple green sari, silver bordered for my teens. So that is the first part of the poem that I have read before you. I shall be talking and discussing this part for your benefit later on. You can send me your questions also, and we will be trying to answer that questions too on any forum. So let us first of all take the lines line by line. First of all, if I read the first line, they send me a shalwar kameez, peacock blue. So peacock blue is the color, as the color is present in the picture, but it may not be necessarily the peacock blue color. But the poetess tells us that peacock blue color salwar kameez or shirt and trouser have been sent by her aunts to her as a type of gift to her. That is the first thing which has been sent. And secondly, we have another thing which has been sent to her, and that is uh, glistening like an orange split open, embossed slippers. So in the same way, gold and black points curling candy stripped glass bangles. Uh, Embossed slippers, that is another thing sent by the aunts, embossed slippers. So these are the shoes which possibly have been sent to her, and these shoes are of the color orange split open, and then it is the gold and black candy separated glass bangles. The slippers are also having curling points. In order to understand this curling point thing, we need to understand a Pakistani hussa thing, Pakistani particular type of shoe thing, and that is the shoe which is called hussa here, and sometimes the ending, the front ending of the hussa is curled upward. So that is why this is the type of description given to the hussa as well. So in that way, you people can see that sometime it is the shalwar kameez, sometime it is the shoe being discussed, but very beautifully it is being discussed in the way that it is you know very much decorated, very much beautiful, and the poet is very good in conveying to us the kind of colors of different shoes and that of the shalwar kameez. Same case has been done by the poetess with the third thing, and that is the bangles. These bangles, the poet says that they are also very much decorated, very much beautiful, and she says that these are glass bangles, as is most of the time case that the glass bangles are there. These glass bangles are worn by the girls in order to, uh, decorate themselves for the Eid occasion or different occasions which happen in Pakistan or the function. So in this way, bangles, this shalwar kameez and hussa all combined together in order to make it a celebrated kind of thing. And then the poet comes down in order to refer to the changing fashion. She says that like the schools fashions change, as in the schools fashion change, in the same way at many other places the fashions keep on changing, and that is why she says that now it is the broad and stiff then narrow. First of all, the bottoms of the shalwars were broad, now they become narrow. And I think I remember that these days they are once again very much broad. So in this way, the fashion and the style of clothing has also been pointed out. She says that she has been looking at the fashion since the time of her teenage until now it has been going on. Now, this is the summary, this is the explanation of these lines. But we can talk about these lines in another way also by saying that there is a lot of Pakistani-ness in these lines, like talking of shalwar kameez, then of the shoe, then of the bangles, then of the changing fashions. These all make it Pakistani. But you can see that here only the dress of the woman or the girl has been pointed out. There's nothing talked about Pakistan. So we can say that Moniza is representing only half Pakistan, not full Pakistan. Perhaps she's a woman writer, a woman poet, and she knows better how to represent a woman in Pakistan. So that is why it is the case, perhaps. And even the title of the poem, My Aunts, that also goes to point out that it's going to be about the woman. So, students and viewers, you see, this is the start of the poem, which is all about Pakistan. And secondly, the theme of changing of the fashion has also been talked about in this part of the poem. Let us go into the other parts because the poem has got many parts and I need to complete this today. Now, this is the second part of the poem. And here in the picture, you can see that the girl is in the jeans and then it is the upper which she is wearing. This is very much different from the first slide. For example, here the dress is very much different and here the dress is very much different. This two contrasting and duality of situation is going to be talked about in the second part of the poem. So let me read this second part of the poem for you, then we discuss it. I tried each satin silken top was alien in the sitting room. I could never be as lovely as those clothes I longed for, denim and corduroy. My costume clung to me and I was aflame. I couldn't rise up out of its fire, half English, unlike Aunt Jamila. So this is the change from the first part to the second part, that she says when she wore the salwar kameez sent by her aunts to her, she didn't feel comfortable at all in the company of her friends, in the company of class fellows, and in the company of many other people. She felt totally uncomfortable. She says that she felt more comfortable in her genes and she wished to wear that. In this way, a change of fractured identity can also be witnessed. Transformation in the identity can also be witnessed. Because the poetess says, half English, unlike Aunt Jamila. So she says that when she wore this type of clothing of Pakistan, she didn't look like the English person or the person living in England. She looked more like half English. So it is the transformation of identity also, that the people who travel from Pakistan to England start living there. They can never look like total English people, although they wear their clothes, follow their culture, but the color of their skins, their features, their styles do not make them 100% English. So in this way, they remain half English. So they are half English, and as a result, they are half Pakistani. So there is the change in their identity, a transformation of the identity is there. And duality is present in this stanza also by saying that first she talks about the Pakistani clothes and opposes or juxtaposes this with the English clothing, that is jeans and the upper of the top as well. So that is the second part of the poem. Let us go to the third part of the poem also. This is the third part. And if you look at the picture, this picture is that of the lamp, one lamp on which camels pictures are present. And I have listened that there are many types of lamps prepared from Pakistan and sent to England. One of the lamp is that which is prepared out of the skin of the camel. And about that, the third stanza is going to be. I am reading this stanza for you people. I wanted my parents' camel skin lamp, switching it on in my bedroom, uh, to consider the cruelty and the transformation from camel to shade, marvel at the colors like stained glass. My mother cherished her. Okay, leave it first and let's talk about the first half of the, this first half of the stanza. Here you see that the gifts or the presents which come to her are not only shalwar kameez and decorating things. Here are the gifts which are made out of the skin of a camel, that is called camel skin lamp. Moniza, as a poet, wished that she should have this lamp in her room, not to enjoy, but to consider about the cruelty which was committed with the camel. Perhaps first the camel was killed, then its skin was transformed, and after that, with its skin, the lamp was prepared. She says she does not like such things. She would prefer only to think about that and perhaps to stop it as well. This is the type of gift she wanted to put in her room instead of the room of her parents, and to talk about this one as well. In this way, Moniza's softer side is visible here. Her side to protect the animals is visible here. Her side to show carefulness and stop the cruelty on the animals is also there. And now let us see the second part of the poem. Second part of this stanza. My mother cherished her jewelry, Indian gold, dangling, filigree, but it was stolen from our car. The presents were radiant in my wardrobe. My aunts requested cardigans from Marks and the Spencer, from Marks and the Spencer. So in that way, she's also indicating that her mother had a lot of jewelry that was made up of the gold, and as it is the dominant feature of the life of the Indian and Pakistani people, that they wear a lot of gold. So that is why she's referring to that. And what was the benefit of this gold thing, to keep this gold thing with them when it was stolen? When it was stolen from their car, it was totally useless. So in this way, she has tried to highlight the uselessness of the costly gifts. Number one is the camel skin lamp, and number two is the you know the jewelry which the mother was having, of which we are so proud, of which we are so snobbish. We want to point it out to the people that we have this thing in order to establish our status. So the theme of materialism and the showiness and the snobbery, which can be possibly because of these things, that has been pointed out by the writer, by the poet. Yes, we may call it a theme, but also we can call it the kind of feelings the writer has against these things, that has been pointed out. And alongside that, before ending this stanza, this part of the poem, the writer has also pointed out when her aunts sent to her some gifts from Pakistan, they also demanded to have cardigans from the famous costly company of England, Marks and Spencer. So in this way, demand was very high, as they also perhaps wanted to show that their relatives living in London are sending them such costly gifts. So human nature, a type of greedy human nature, has also been pointed out, that they want to show off whatever they have to the people in order to make it as good as possible. So that is the way Maniza Shamsi is trying to highlight the issue. And then let us move on to the fourth part of the poem. And girls, The girls and females among my viewers will be looking at the picture and finding that this picture is full of the mirror work or the glass work on the cloth. And this fourth stanza is about that. Let us read it. My shalwar kameez didn't impress the school friend who sat on my bed, asked to see my weekend clothes, but often I admired the mirror work, tried to glimpse myself in the miniature. Glass circle, recall the story, how the three of us sailed to England, prickly heat, and had me screaming on the way. I ended up in a cot in my English grandmother's dining room, found myself alone, found myself alone playing with that tiny boat. So that is the fourth part of the poem, and I would be highlighting this issue to you people by saying or dividing the this part also into two parts. Part is one part is that in which uh, uh, I would say that the writer is the poet is trying to say that the clothes which were sent to her, they had mirror work on it also, and this mirror work was very beautiful, very good, and this mirror was so good that it looked fascinating to her. In that way, she was very happy. Because of her happiness, she says that she enjoyed this thing very much and admired this thing very much, but this thing was not that much liked by her school friends. Her school friends probably didn't take any interest. That is the difference of the culture of the English people and that of the Pakistani people. Pakistani people may be liking it very much, but she says that her uh, English class fellows did not like that. But in the second part of this stanza, she says that she remembered her story when she migrated from Pakistan to England, and she remembers this thing when she has a look into that small mirror, looks at herself, and this look reminds her that once she was from Pakistan and she had traveled, as she says, they had sailed to England, not flown to England, but sailed to England. This is a particular word used by her. She says that during her journey, she fell a victim to the prickly heats, and so she was a sick and ill person. When she reached there, she had a grandmother, English grandmother, and there she came. She was put in that room, in that home of the grandmother, and there she started to play as a child with the tin boat. Tin boat is a tiny type of boat made of iron, tin we can say, and it can float in the water when you put ignition to some material into it. So in this way, she is trying to highlight her childhood when she was there. So we can say that Moniza, in the first part of this stanza, talks about the worthlessness and uselessness of such a decoration, as many people in England wouldn't like that. So as a result, this is the difference between one thing and the other thing, on one culture and the other culture. Same is the case with the childhood story. She says that when she came from Pakistan, she was like that, and now she's a different person. She's a grown-up person, and while telling so, she indicates her link with the English grandmother. And students, if you notice, the word English is with E, capital E, and that goes to show that the poet wanted us to pay a special attention to this word, that she had already a relationship with the Europe, with London, with England, because her grandmother from there, and as a result, she had again a double identity already in her genes, in her appearance, that up to some extent she could reflect some kind of genetic material, which may be from England and other one may be from India. So this is again the hybridity case and the case of dual identity as well. Let's go to the next part of the poem. This poem is a little bit longer, so be patient in completing this fifth part. And this part brings us to Pakistan. So the poem is frequently traveling from England to Pakistan, Pakistan to England. In the last fourth part, we read the travel from Pakistan to England, and now we have this picture. And I think everybody is able to understand that this picture is the picture of beautiful Shalimar Garden, which has a history, Pakistani history in it, that the Mughals prepared it, and now it is the source of enjoyment and pleasure for all Pakistanis and for all the people who come from abroad. So therefore, here we see the Shalimar Garden. Same thing is present in our, this stanza number 5. Let's read it. I pictured my birthplace from 50s photographs when I was older. There was a conflict, a fractured land throbbing through newsprint. Sometimes I saw Lahore, my aunts in shaded rooms, screened from male visitors, sorting presents, wrapping them in tissue, or wrapping them in tissue. Or there were beggars, sweepers, girls, and I was there, of no fixed nationality, staring through fretwork at the Shalimar Gardens. So this is the fifth part, and in this part, the tone of the poem becomes a little bit lighter when she remembers about her birthplace. And this is not the, I'm sorry, this is not the reality that she has gone to the birthplace. It is the imagination which has been triggered when she looks at the pictures of her 50 years ago. And these pictures remind her that the timing of the pictures and timing of her childhood was that of the conflict in Pakistan and India when Pakistan was being created, and that is why the word fractured land has been used. This fractured land is definitely Indo-Pak subcontinent, where everything was at that time throbbing. That India and Pakistan was to be created after fracturing the land of India, South Asia, or we can say Indo-Pak subcontinent. She says that in her dream, she imagined that she was in Lahore and she was in the room of the aunties where the gifts were coming and going, and these aunties were packing these gifts and wrapping them also in tissue papers to be sent to her and to show that they can send this. She says that she can further imagine that on the one part there is the wrapping of the gifts the rich people can do. On the other hand, we had the beggars, the sweeper girls. All these people were the very poor girl who couldn't have these gifts and couldn't have sharing of these gifts at all. And same is the case with the nationality, that in case of beggars and sweepers and aunts, there's no problem of nationality. The problem of nationality was that with the writer, with the poet, that she was living in England. She had half genes of that English grandmother, but half of her was Pakistani, and that is why fractured identity, like the fractured timing of Pakistan, these are equated together by her. This fracturing brings her to the justification that fractured identity did exist, and the poet is trying to present that. And the comparison and contrast have been made with the identity of the beggars, sweeper girls, and aunts, because they were living in Pakistan and didn't have this type of problem at all. This is the thing the writer has tried to show. And in this stanza, the writer brings us to Pakistan, to the history of Pakistan. So these things combine together in order to make this poem a part of, necessarily a part of the Pakistani literature. Students, thank God, and viewers, thank God, the poem has ended, and now we can briefly talk about the critical commentary that possibly we can have on this poem. For example, the points on which we can talk about the critical commentary about this poem is that interconnection with home, diasporic issues, Pakistani culture, irregular lining, no rhyme scheme, similes, women in their dresses, and diaspora. First of all, interconnection with home. You have seen in many of the stanzas that the writer goes back again and again to her home, in the first stanza also, then in the last stanza also, in the fourth and fifth. Every stanza, the writer was trying to go back to her home in Lahore, go back to talk about her aunts and then about the people in Pakistan, and then going back again to England and talking about the people of England around her. All these things are present in the poem, and therefore we can say that there is an interconnection between her home life and about her lost home and about her new home. Then diasporic issues have also been talked about, that some of the cultural issues are there. Dressing is different, appearance is different, and because of this, the Pakistanis can never become the English people. And as a result, They continue to search for their lost roots, the roots in Pakistan or the original home. So homelessness and home fullness, these are two things which are talked about right there. Pakistani culture is quite visible in this poem, like there is the mention of the dressing, mention of other habits of the people. All these things are taught, so that is why Pakistani culture is there. As far as the stylistic issue of the poem is concerned, lines of the poem. For example, if I take you to any line, for example, look here, no regular pattern of lines is there. Some lines are longer, some are shorter, some are aligned to the left, some are aligned to the right, and some are of shorter words, some are of bigger words. This is the condition in almost every line, every part of the poetry. So that is why we can say that irregular lining system is present in the poem. Besides this irregularity is also because no rhyme scheme has been followed. And now it can be a problem. What's a rhyme scheme? Rhyme scheme is that when the poems have the lines and ending of the lines may have somewhere similar sounds. The ending sounds may be similar. This is called as the rhyme scheme that mostly the poets follow. But this poem does not have any rhyme scheme. For example, birthplace, place, ace, lace, or place. This is the ending of the first line in part 5. Graphs, offs, or graphs is the ending of the second line. Older, der, or older is the third line ending. So none of these lines is resembling with respect to the ending sound. So that is why we can say this is the case that there is no rhyme scheme followed in this poem. In part 4 also you can have the same thing in part 3, part 2, and part 1. All the poem part do not have any type of rhyme scheme. However, some are similes used by the poet in the poem. And you know, my readers and my viewers, that simile is what? It is going to be something when we compare with the other thing. I mean, we give example. As we, for example, say that this color is like the color of sky, or we say he is like the lion, something like that. So this could be some of the similes. These similes are present. Let me indicate in the part 1 of the poem. The third line says, glistening like an orange split open. Like word goes to show that this is the simile. Simile always has two parts. One part comes first, and then the second part comes second on. In that way, the simile is there. Similarly, if we proceed to some other part, in the second part, we may not be finding any simile. I don't find students should go deep into the poem and try to find. In the third part, maybe some simile available. For example, if you look at the line number 4, 5, 6, it says marvel at colors like stained glass, like stained glass. That is again colors like stained glass. That's again is simile. In the fourth part, again we may have some other simile in the fifth part also. So students may be looking for such similes. Women and their dresses are another important part of the poem, important part of the critical features of the poem. All types of and all parts of the dresses which the women wear has been talked about in this poem. So poem is very much womanly. It is the representation of women with respect to women, and it also goes to highlight about the life of women in Pakistan and then in diaspora. So that is why it is about the women and dresses. The poem is about the women and dresses. When I say the word diaspora, it means that this is the life of the people who live in other countries rather than Pakistan, who are Pakistani, live in other countries, that they become diasporic people. And then the problems of the diaspora has also been talked about in this poem, as I said already. So this is the part of diaspora literature as well, and it is Pakistani literature as well. So, and I can say that this is the important thing about this poem we can discuss. And here, the whole poem and its commentary ends. The students will be able to watch, the viewers will be able to watch it later on. But right now, possibly, we will be going to the other parts of our lecture. So that's it from me. From here, we shall be closing it now.